Hey guys, welcome to The Strong Young Man. Our species has been able to thrive because of the collective activity of people supplying their individual talents. Our times emphasise equality, which is desirable if we are talking about equal civil rights and equality in the eyes of the law. But modern society is mistakenly insisting that men and women have the homogeneous capacity to meet environmental and situational challenges to equal effect. The prevailing theory from the intelligentsia is that social factors and systemic discrimination alone are responsible for the difference in outcomes between men and women. This is a fallacy. Social factors have only a very, very minor impact. Men and women are fundamentally different, evidence of which can be seen in utero from the sonograms of pregnant mothers. Other than the obvious physical differences, male fetuses are more active in the womb and spend more time with their hands around their genitals, whereas female fetuses generally spend more time with their hands around their face. These physical and behavioural differences get expressed before any social factors can take effect. It's the biological differences that get expressed prenatally and throughout a person's life that causes inequality of outcome between men and women. The Y chromosome, found only in men, triggers the growth of testes in a male fetus, which secretes androgen hormones such as testosterone. Androgens have a permanent effect on the body, such as enhancing mechanical aptitude, increasing endeavour, increasing cardiovascular efficiency, speed, endurance, and muscle mass. For women, they lack the same level of endogenous androgen production, and so they've developed strengths in other areas to balance out the physical deficiency. The hormonal differences cause the female brain to operate completely differently to the male brain. Although the brains of both genders are more similar than different, it is the small differences in brain structure that are responsible for the large differences between the way men and women think. Male brains are highly connected from front to back, are approximately 11% larger, and have more neurons even when correcting for body size. Men have approximately 6.5 times the amount of grey matter related to general intelligence than women, making them better at higher functions like coordination, planning, and thinking. The interstitial nuclei and the nucleus of the striata terminalis of the hypothalamus are larger in men. These traits cause men to be more physically and sexually aggressive. Female brains are highly connected across the left and right hemisphere. Women have approximately 10 times more white matter and have a larger hippocampus, which makes them better at learning and memory. These differences in brain structure causes differences in the way men and women communicate, think, feel, perceive, solve problems, love each other, need each other, and sexualise each other. Based on neurological differences alone, men and women will never have an equal ability to meet environmental and situational challenges to equal effect. Interestingly, when we overlay the activity of the neuronal circuits of the male brain and compare it to the female brain, it becomes perfectly balanced, where the inactive areas in female brains are more active in male brains and the inactive areas in male brains are more active in female brains. Differences between the sexes have evolved over 2.4 million years to complement each other. A man's strengths compensate for a woman's weaknesses and vice versa. Men and women were always meant to be complementary opposites, not adversarial competitors. It's the gender differences, not the androgynous similarities, that tie us together. Men and women each have their strengths, which is a direct consequence that chromosomal transcriptions have on the body and brain of men and women. To ignore this is to ignore basic biology. It's better to acknowledge these differences and play to our strengths, to take maximal advantage of people's natural abilities. It is obvious that these differences in chromosomal transcriptional activity produce different outcomes, but what we have recently come to discover is that these outcomes are larger in egalitarian countries, where men and women receive the greatest autonomy in their pursuit of happiness. In these countries, where men and women have the highest levels of freedom, the differences between job selection, for example, become larger, not smaller, which is the exact opposite of what feminists would have you believe. These countries are also, not totally coincidentally, the most productive and prosperous economies. When people are free to choose, men overwhelmingly choose careers working with things such as tools and gadgets, and women overwhelmingly choose careers working with people. This means that most professions that care for people, like health, are largely made up of women, and most professions that use tools and gadgets are dominated by men. The male brain certainly has its advantages when it comes to working in some professions, and the female brain also has its advantages in certain fields. You cannot equalise this outcome because men and women do not begin from a blank slate. In order to equalise this outcome, you must take away the freedom for men and women to choose how they want to live their life. Doing this actually forces more inequality on everybody. I covered why equality of outcome is an atrocious ideology in episode 61. In order to achieve equality of outcome, individuals' abilities must be ignored, which elevates the less skillful and suppresses those who excel. This causes a reduction in the extraction of useful work output for those genetically suited to excel in that profession. The result being that society falls behind economically and eventually starves to death or is conquered by another tribe. Humans would not be the first species to succumb to the belief that men and women are better as equals. A common hypothesis from expert anthropologists as for why the Neanderthals became extinct is due to their unwillingness to sexually divide the labour. They failed to acknowledge male and female strengths and incorporate those strengths into their culture and relationships. Both male and female Neanderthals participated in hunting animals such as bison, deer, gazelles, and wild horses. Female Neanderthals were inefficient hunters due to their biological limitations in strength, speed, and endurance. The hypothesis proposes that the Neanderthals' relative lack of sexual division of labour resulted in less efficient extraction of resources from the environment when compared to Homo sapiens, which resulted in extinction of the Neanderthal species when resources became scarce. Our Homo sapien ancestors recognised the gender differences and when resources were thin, played to their strengths, giving them a profound survival advantage. Men and women are so different that it is impossible to consider either one superior or inferior to the other. They are so different that they will never be the same. Equality implies that they are identical. If men and women were 100% equal to each other, then there wouldn't be any requirement for men to be with women and for women to be with men. Unfortunately, we are pushing this bullshit regressive ideology that men and women are equal more than ever, and what we are seeing is the reduction of necessity for marriage. One of the flow-on effects of this is that it's causing the fertility rates to plummet. Almost every nation around the world has decreasing fertility rates, having halved from 4.7 births per woman in 1960 to 2.35 births per woman in 2020. Most nations asserting that men and women ought to be equal in their outcomes have fertility rates well below the sustainable fertility rate of 2.1 births and are at risk of total population collapse in the future. The reason that marriage works so well for all of modern history is because men and women are different. To insist that men and women ought to have equal outcomes will have cascading implications that will upset the polarity between the genders for generations to come. As Dutch journalist and preacher Cornelius van Engelen puts things, the idea of sustaining married love depends on emphasising and maintaining the mental, emotional and practical differences between the sexes. Were a woman to have the same authority as a man, or a man the same kind-heartedness as a woman, the former possessing a man's courage and resolve, the latter woman's tenderness and charm, then they would be independent of one another. Such independence is incompatible with marriage stability. The different nature of men and women was precisely what made them dependent on each other for marital bliss. Ultimately, this ends up hurting women more than men, because women depend on the authority of men more than men depend on the kind-heartedness of women. I'm not implying any gender is superior over the other, just that they are different. I believe in complementarity among the sexes. Equality implies a belief that either sex has the same capacity to meet environmental and situational challenges to an equal effect. Men and women are fundamentally different. For some situations, a man's strengths can make him superior than women. Similarly, some situations appeal to women's strengths when compared to men meeting the same challenges. Life is not a level playing field at all times, and nor should it be. Men and women have evolved to be different, and to work cooperatively together in order to solve the challenges that we face as a species. The inequalities are actually what keeps things in order. With both men and women codependent on each other, we can provide the other with the strengths the other lacks, so our species can thrive. Maintaining this codependency will ensure that men and women are never segregated so far as to affect the reproduction of the human race. Thanks for watching today's episode. In episode 128, I'll be talking about the dangers of political correctness. Subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when it drops. Catch you then.